hour, it looks like by the timing, of Q&A about history, social studies, and the like. We do questions and answers, Ask Me Anythings here every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've been a little interrupted as of late. However, I am here, I'm with you, and I will be able to answer all of the questions you have about history, social studies, and the like. And we'll go to at least the 7 o'clock hour. I hope everybody's having a really good Halloween and has some really great plans laid out for tonight. I do as well. And but because by viewer demand here on the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, I am dressing up this year. We're not only doing formal wear, but I am dressed up controversial people, especially on this channel. The 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, the president who navigated the United States through the Great War and, of course, created the Federal Reserve, screen birth of a nation at the White House, and has never been forgiven for any of these things, seemingly. So, of course, I've had a lot of extensive talk about Woodrow Wilson, his impact, his reputation, and all the things that went wrong with his presidency, and all the things that were good about his presidency. Of course, he was the man who came up with kind of a supranational 20th century idea of the League of Nations and the United Nations and all of that great stuff. But today I am dressed up by viewer demand, voting here exclusively on YouTube. I am dressed up as the 28th President of the United States, Mr. Woodrow Wilson. Yes, and I am indeed Woodrow Wilson, but I don't have anyone running things for me. Woodrow Wilson obviously had a stroke near the end of his presidency, and his wife ended up running things. So I'm here to answer all of your questions about history and social studies. We find an appropriate background for me, as I'm dressed up as Woodrow Wilson here, Friendly Neighborhood History, answering all of your questions about history and social studies in a cheerful, neighborly manner, as we always do here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. So, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope you're having a great Halloween. A happy Halloween to you. Join us for our live stream lecture this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, where I will be talking about the history of Halloween, one of the most important holidays in human history. And so I am really looking forward to discussing all of that with you. And how Samhain became a Christianized holiday that has become one of the most popular commercial holidays, where trick-or-treating comes from, why we eat candy, why we dress up, why we trick-or-treat, all of that great stuff I will be discussing with you guys on Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and hopefully, if scheduling allows, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, I will be doing my second part of my Q&A, Ask Me Anything, where you can ask me about anything related to history and social studies, as you can right now. So drop a topic, question, or comment in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer it in a timely manner as soon as possible. And if you don't drop a question, well, the Teutonic Knights may very well invade your country like they invaded Lithuania in the 12th century. But yes, welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, and a very happy Halloween to all of you. So if you have a question about history or social studies, drop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer it. But yes. What do you think of King Richard, brother of King John? I think he is so overrated, and he was in the country for all of 6 months. King Richard the Lionheart was a great warrior in general, obviously famous for his fights against the Muslims in the Third Crusade, which didn't go successfully. But it went as successfully as it could be, given the fact that France totally bailed out on him and he didn't have the forces to defeat Saladin. The fact that Saladin was probably the greatest general in Muslim history, and he wasn't able to fully vanquish Richard, says something about what a great general Richard was. The fact that the Muslims are the ones that gave him the nickname the Lionheart. Richard's prowess on the battlefield was quite exceptional. He had already agreed to go on crusade before becoming the King of England, and really wasn't interested in statecraft, politics, or administration, and wasn't a good king by any metric other than the fact that he was good at fighting, and that fighting really did not prosper or benefit England that much. They had to pay exorbitant ransoms for him when he was captured by, I believe it was the Duke of Hungary, on his way back from the Crusades. He had a lot of problems, but he probably could have been a successful king on the battlefield. He probably would have prevented Philip II from taking back a bunch of French land that the English owned in France if Richard had indeed lived. But he died childless and left the throne to his brother, the infamous King John from the Robin Hood legends, who obviously was horrible as king in real life as well. So that's some history here from the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. I'm dressed up as the 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, and I want to welcome you to our Q&A, Ask Me Anything, where you can get my opinion on any historian's opinion on any particular historical topic, or you can learn more about it. So please ask it in the chat. So, yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't need a top. I don't have a top hat, so I'm not going to wear one. I'm not going to wear something I don't have. But anyways, so I'm dressed up as Woodrow Wilson for our Q&A, Ask Me Anything. But yeah, so yes. No, I'm not a televangelist. Good guess, a CIA agent televangelist. I get where you get that from, but I'm actually, due to popular demand from the channel, dressed up as Woodrow Wilson. I got the horn rim spectacles. I've got the suit on. But yes, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president of the United States. People really wanted me to dress up at that for some reason, and here I am. What's your view on the Falklands War? One of the most well-executed wars of the 20th century by the British. A rare example where the British were willing to fight and hold on to a colony after the last World War, where they were seemingly constantly under pressure from the United States and the Soviet Union to give up what colonies they had left. So, but yeah, what do you think about TB? What do you mean to TB? Did you segregate? Well, Woodrow Wilson did a lot of segregating. He segregated the government and I believe the American military when he was president. Yes, thank you. Yes, I did indeed segregate the government as Woodrow Wilson. Now, Friendly Neighborhood History may disagree with that because he isn't a racist, but I, Woodrow Wilson, if I'm in character, yes, indeed, I did segregate the government. I also grew out a beard for another costume this month. I'm going to shave the beard and go back to my clean-shaven ways, but also popular demand. People voted for me to keep the beard, so I did not shave it in time. Woodrow Wilson was clean-shaven throughout most of his life. Woodrow Wilson, one of the most interesting presidents in American history, very controversial, the internet loves to hate him today, but Wilson was actually only the second U.S. president to actually be a Confederate citizen. He grew up in the South during the Civil War. Very different experience than other presidents. The Teutonic Order did not start the Vietnam War, but yeah, trick instead of treat. So anyways, please like and subscribe. That will be the best treat that you could possibly give me on this Halloween, and it's great to see all of you. I hope you're having a really great Halloween, or Samhain, the ancient pagan festival from England that was re-Christianized as All Hallows Eve, the preparation of spirits being close to heaven. All Saints' Day is indeed November 1st, and November 2nd is All Souls' Day. Of course, that's also the inspiration for Dia de los Muertos, which is celebrated this Sunday. Do you know Taino drowned Spaniards? Yes, the Taino drowned Spaniards. Columbus's contingent that was left behind was slaughtered by a lot of Taino Indians in the Bahamas. Egyptian pyramids were built by the Dutch farmers. Yeah, that's not true either. Den, are you just here to throw monkey wrenches into completely normal historical narratives? Yep, I'm not surprised. Woodrow Wilson was one of these progressives who had this idea of there was a lot of progressives in the beginning of the 20th century were not just interested in getting the government to help people with their daily lives, but they were also interested in purifying races, in pleasing God. They believed it would be pleasing to God and pleasing to their society, and it would make them for the best civilization if they embraced a paternalistic social Darwinism whereby their race or social class was better than everyone else's, and everyone else's needed to be pushed out slowly but surely. So yes, I've shared several fun facts about Woodrow Wilson. But anyways, in Puerto Rico, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Angel. History is written by the winners, thus the Masonic Order. Yeah, except that the history is not always written by the winners, and we have so much history from so many different people groups and so many different time periods and so many different minorities in different areas and contexts that history is no longer written by the winners. Yes, thank you. It is indeed Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president of the United States. A young-looking Woodrow Wilson. Islamic rule in Spain, that's Al-Andalus. The Umayyads conquered Spain in the late 8th century and then fled there when they were kicked out of power by the Abbasid Caliphate. But yeah, that's basically what I've got there. 700 years, slowly but surely, the Spanish reconquer, or Reconquista as it's known, the Iberian Peninsula. Portugal is distinct from Spain because it gets its independence a lot sooner than the Spanish do, and Spain is only really becomes a country once Ferdinand and Isabella of Aragon and Castile-Leon respectively unite. So Woodrow Wilson ran for president today. Would he win? No. Too outdated on a lot of his views. Too much of an international globalist to be popular on the right, and too much of a racist and retrograde unprogressive man on the left. Wilson would not have a political home if he ran today, but good question. Amisha, hello. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. Hello, Freshly. So give it up for my moderators, Freshly and Horace and Harry. They always do a great job moderating and holding down the chat and asking questions and pushing the conversations along. So yes. Okay. So if you have a question about history or social studies of any type, of any background, any area, please drop it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer in a friendly, neighborly manner and in a timely manner right now. We're not overwhelmed with the chat, so I can handle it. Where are your CIA agents? They didn't have CIA at that point. The OSS really starts operating in the last World War, what I consider World War III, what many of you probably call World War II, and then really kind of gets going from there and then morphs into the CIA under the Dulleses in the 1950s as they were committed completely to stopping communism wherever it could be seen. The Jews were thrown out after 1492 in Spain. They migrated to North Africa and the Ottoman Empire. That's why my country has Jews. Yes, there's a lot of Jews in the Maghreb and the Ottoman Empire, and there were before then and after 1492 Sephardic Jews. Did you know a monk in Portugal started the Crusader for Christianity? It spread across England. There was a lot of crusades before then. I try to be based, but also fair and reasonable and objective as possible in my history. What about Indians? What do you mean about Indians? The Crusades were a series of military campaigns by Western Europe to retake the Holy Land. The Teutonic Knights were an order of knights that were created out of the Crusades that were supposed to directly serve the Pope. The Templars were another one, probably the more infamous one of the bunch. But basically, these various different knightly orders took up the cross and served the Pope to fight in major or minor crusades wherever they happened. But basically, the main crusades, the first four, are considered the major ones. The first one is the only successful one, where the Crusaders were actually successful in retaking the Holy Land, capturing the capital of Jerusalem from the Muslims. The Seljuk Turks, they were later kicked out by the Ayyubids under a man named Saladin, and eventually that area settled under complete control of the Mamluk Muslims and later the Ottoman Turks, and the Crusaders were never able to win back the area. However, the learning and knowledge that they brought back from their travels in the Middle East did spark on learning that would lead to the Renaissance. What about India? India is one of the most ancient civilizations in human history. It starts in the Indus River Valley with the Indus River Valley people in probably about 3000 BC. And those people don't have as much of a strong written record as the Indo-Aryans who create the Vedic period in the 1500s BC, 15th century, 1400s BC. But yeah, there's some history about India. I know a lot about India's history. It's a fascinating country. Most of the early Indian civilization is actually in Pakistan. Most of the Indus River is in Pakistan. And of course, the Ganges is the predominant river in India, the fourth largest river in the world. Used a guerrilla in war. I think they're too hard to tame, but I would imagine they have been used. Why were the Jews thrown out of 109 countries? A lot of it is discrimination, hatred. Obviously, there's a lot of angst and anti-Jewish sentiment. Many of these countries where Jews were kicked out because they were considered to be the ones who had killed Christ. In Europe, Muslims in Middle Eastern countries kicked them out after the 1948 war, displaced the Palestinians. Let me see. Yes, some of the Taínos worked with the Spaniards, hoping that they could unite them and use them against the Caribs. It was not uncommon for Native Americans to ally with settlers, either English, Spanish, French, or Portuguese, in order to fight against other natives. Do I support Pakistan or India? Don't know enough to say one way or another. Of course, I know about the Kashmir struggle, which has been going on for more than 50 years. A little bit about Puerto Rican pesos. Let me see. This may be too prehistoric for you, but if you have info, what is your opinion on the Israelites, Hebrews being descended from Canaan versus the story of them conquering Canaan? Old Testament and the basic understanding of Jewish and Israelite national identity from the Davidic kingdom. They are the descendants not of Cain, of the Canaanites, but of Shem, who is one of the sons of Noah, who survives the huge flood. Shem is the blessed one. Ham is the cursed one. Canaan is one of the sons of Ham. So it's this literature that's written in the Old Testament, the book of Genesis, is written from an Israelite perspective and is meant to justify their eventual conquest of the land and displacement and destruction of the Canaanite civilization. Which is not uncommon at all. Neither is a giant flood destroying the world. These narratives exist all throughout the ancient world, so it's not uncommon at all. I've never heard the theory that they were descended from Canaan. Many people confuse that with Cain from the story of Cain and Abel, but then again, these are biblical stories. We don't have necessarily historical evidence for them. We do have the shaping of a cultural and national identity based on them in many ways. Wholesome Grail. Good question. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying the history I'm talking about. I'm Woodrow Wilson. Well, I'm actually in Friendly Neighborhood History, but I'm dressed up as Woodrow Wilson today for our Halloween special. A very happy Samhain to all of you. And I've got my Teutonic Knights in the background here. Of course, they're not really connected with Woodrow Wilson, but they're a cool background. So I'm talking about the Crusades, I'm talking about prehistoric history, and of course I'm talking about the presidency of the 28th president of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. ChatGPT, for example, says Israel descends from Canaan. Yeah, ChatGPT is wrong. Why are you using ChatGPT to learn things? Just come here and learn things. Thank you, Fury, I guess. Was Paul working for the Romans? This is a common theory amongst a lot of people who are more skeptical about religion, that St. Paul and some of the early Christian writers were actually working for the Romans. There's no evidence that he was. He was eventually supposedly executed by the Romans. But Josephus, who wrote the Jewish histories, certainly, and the Antiquities, was certainly working for the Romans. He adopted it into the Flavians because he had told Vespasian to become the emperor, which Vespasian did. Do you know Ramon Ementro Botana story? No, I do not. If a Big Bang Theory is true, then every time I go to the bathroom, new universes would be created. Yeah, very funny, but not true. Let me see here. Uh, he was wiped by the Romans. Okay. I don't think that's true. Is declining of USA started? Tell something about future world order. We don't know what the future world order is going to look like, but a lot of people believe the U.S. is in decline. So let me see. Yeah, it lies completely in Pakistan. It's so funny that the Indus River Valley, it doesn't, a lot of people don't want to call it India. That's why the name eventually sticks, India. But a lot of people would prefer to go with Bharat, the ancient term for the Indians. Did the Spanish fight the Russians? A couple of times, the Spanish and Russians have been on opposite sides. In what I call World War One, the 7 Years' War, they were, but very indirect in how much they fought. You got one on one side of Europe and one on one side of the other side of Europe, and basically on other sides of the world in many ways. So, title Pope Blasphemous or just replacement for Saint Peter? Pope means father in Latin. It's a derivative of Papa. The people in Palestine are European and are stealing Muslim land. You mean the Jews, the Israelis who live there? They are Ashkenazi Jews, some of them, and some of them are Sephardic and Mizrahim Jews. It's not true at all. India belonged to Muslims for 800 years, so it isn't Hindustan. It's called Hindustan. That's why the notion that Columbus called the natives Indians because he thought he was in India is wrong. He called them un gente, un indios, a people in God, and that's where we get indios, Indian, indigenous from. But let me see here. India belonged to Muslims for so it didn't belong to Muslims. The Muslims conquered it. Did the Spanish exile the Mexicans out of disrespect? No. The Mexicans got their independence. After the Napoleonic Wars, Spain and Portugal could really no longer justify holding on to their empires. They were in shambles domestically, and it allowed all of their imperial and colonial lands to gain their independence. I don't hate Muslims. Oh, great. Evan's back, and he's Fury of Apocalyptor. Were the Mexicans better off of Spain? Not necessarily. They definitely wanted their independence. You have Miguel Hidalgo, the priest, Castilla, who starts the movement in 1810, and then it kind of takes a dormant rest during the Peninsular War, and then eventually Spain just doesn't have the manpower to continue to control it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that. That's like saying the 13 colonies were better off with Great Britain. In some ways they were, but some ways they weren't. Yeah. Paul bastardized the teachings of Yeshua Hashemach, a.k.a. Christ. Okay, then. That's probably not true, but all right. I'm not everyone knows you hate Muslims. Yes, fantastic. It's either Evan or one of his lackeys who's come back to avenge Evan because Evan lost so badly when he tried to talk to me about this stuff. But yeah. Who destroyed Iraq? The United States, mostly. Iraq was destabilized when Saddam Hussein, who was not a benevolent, kind person at all, was defanged with the Gulf War and then completely overthrown with Operation Iraqi Freedom. The United States tried to export democracy. Democracy does not work. That's not a democratically friendly area. It didn't even go work. Yes. Yes, those 13 colonies were totally better off with Great Britain, and then they became the United States, and then the United States became better than Britain in very, very short time. So, yeah. Your views are heterodox on a lot of those topics, a lot of pop history content on YouTube. Leans on rewrites. I don't lean on rewrites. I try to get as honest and straightforward a take on history as possible. And that's what we do here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. We deliver history, but we are open to being corrected. We're open to hearing and learning from you guys, so we really appreciate it. So please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining us. A very happy Halloween. I'm Woodrow Wilson, and this is my army of Teutonic Knights joining us. Usually I'm Friendly History. Sometimes I'm History Hefner if I can get my smoking jacket on. But today, due to popular demand and votes here on YouTube, we decided to have some Halloween fun and voted for me to be dressed as Woodrow Wilson. And check out my long-form video debuting later today where I will be discussing, it's a re-upload from last year, where I discuss the history of Halloween. So you guys can learn some impressive Halloween facts that you can share with your friends and that one special lady or guy at a party that you want to impress and take home with you by telling them all about history that you learned from me, the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. And I'm not the Friendly Neighborhood Historian, but you can be if you like and subscribe. But yeah, check out that video and learn a lot about the history of Halloween, how a pagan holiday was re-Christianized and rebranded to become one of the most popular consumer holidays in the country. And I think more this year than any other year, I really got into the Halloween spirit. I dressed up on 3 separate occasions, and I'm going back for a Halloween party tonight. And I'll be sharing some historical knowledge about Samhain, or Halloween, in order to impress friends and those around me. So you should do the same thing as well. So, Anyways, and it's nice to have you here. I really appreciate that. In America, compared to any European countries of the third world, yes, that's fascinating, Harry, because that's not true. But Jesus showed up to him and showed him the way to salvation. Are we arguing about theology? Are we still talking about St. Paul? Just knock it off. Do we have questions about history or social studies? That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to learn about. Halloween is satanic. No, Halloween is not satanic. I know a lot of people who think that, and a lot of people think that because of the paganic roots of Halloween with Samhain, which was an ancient Anglo-Saxon practice. The Anglo-Saxons are the people who eventually settled the country that would become England, but after the Romans fell. But basically, Samhain is the God. It's hard to see in these glasses, but Samhain is basically the holiday of where the dead souls supposedly get close to humans. But basically, the way it works is, in order to protect yourselves, you would dress up in costume to keep yourself safe from these souls and to show them that you're not afraid of them. The church, the Christian church, obviously became interested in converting that area, and Augustine of Canterbury becomes the first Archbishop of Canterbury, and then he works night and day on Christianizing and baptizing people, making them Christian in England. And so the holiday is reappropriated and matched with another popular holiday, All Hallows Eve, which comes right before All Saints' Day, which celebrates the holy faithful that are in heaven. And the day after that is All Souls' Day, which, of course, in Latin culture becomes Dia de los Muertos, which is merged with Mayan and Aztec celebrations that honor the memory of the dead. And basically, Tempus fugit, memento mori. Time flies, remember you will die. That is a huge cornerstone of the ancient Samhain of the pagans, the Triduum of the Christian Church, All Hallows Eve, Halloween, and All Souls' Day. All Hallows Eve, which is Halloween, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day, the 2nd of November. And so those are huge in Christianity. And then, of course, also Dia de los Muertos, which falls on All Souls' Day. These are all cultural staples, so that people in different ages will tempus fugit, memento mori. Time will fly, and remember the dead. And that's literally Coco. That's literally the reason. Of course, understanding the ofrenda and the culture of Dia de los Muertos has become a huge part of American culture as the Latin American experience becomes more and more of a predominant factor in American life. So, anyways, so there's a little bit of Halloween history for you guys, and if you like that, please again like and subscribe, and you can check out the full video. But Halloween is not necessarily a satanic holiday. Many of the tricks or treats, and of course you've got a very, very consumerized, very, very defanged version of it, with people dressing up in costumes, getting candy, some people just getting straight out loaded, and sleeping with women dressed as nurses. Anyways, right around the same time as the Day of the Dead from the Americas, similar holiday at the same time, 1,000 miles away. Interesting. People, well, think about the month. Think about the weather. Think about how much that plays into it. You've got the fall months. It's getting colder. The days are shorter. It's drearier. It's darker. It's harder to survive in this time, especially in the ancient and medieval world. So it would make sense culturally for something to develop where you worry about death. You worry about diseases, which this is also flu season. This is also the time when people get sick. And now that's pretty innocuous. But 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 years ago, that could be a death sentence for somebody if they came into contact with a disease like influenza. So the real truth of the matter is, it can still be a death sentence. The real truth of the matter is, it's climatological, it's the timing of these things, it's cultural development. So it's not hugely, overwhelmingly surprising that Dia de los Muertos is celebrated at the same time as All Souls' Day. But great insight, Kazoo. The White House has been this damaged since 1812. You have rampant poverty, extreme. Is Harry still talking about the United States? I don't really care anymore. The Dutch were the first to invent the stock market and made the VOC. Yes, the Dutch Golden Age, which I've talked about a lot, didn't elevate. I'm imagining that you are Dutch, so please go check that out. My entire live stream lecture on the Dutch Republic. I'll do a long-form video one day. I do long-form videos. I try to do them twice a week, Mondays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, but I have short-form videos that drop every day here on the channel, so check that out. What's your take on the 1619 Project? It's obviously extremely important to remember that the United States was, for many centuries, a biracial nation with white and African-American people, and you can't tell the story of the development of the United States without slavery and the way it was dealt with and the way it came to the United States. So obviously, it's quite important. But to reinterpret all of American history from the lens of 1619, I think is ridiculous. So let me see here. There's a similar concept of Halloween in Hinduism. There's just this concept in every culture, and that's what religion is. Religion is the development of culture, and people just have this feeling and this need to understand what will happen to us after we die. Remembering the dead is obviously extremely important. And of course, reincarnation is huge in Hinduism. So why does the U.S. celebrate Thanksgiving or Columbus discovering America when the native people were already here? Why are the pilgrims celebrated for surviving and learning from the natives? Brandon, you should go and watch my live stream lecture on Thanksgiving and on Columbus Day from a couple weeks ago. And I talk about all this stuff. So Columbus didn't discover the Americas. He wasn't even the first European to get to the Americas. The Vikings were. He created sustained long-term contact, SLC, between the Old World and the New World, which shaped the creation of Latin America, the United States, Canada, and basically everything else, the Caribbean, and so on and so forth. So you don't have the creation of a Western world order, and you don't have sustained contact between Europe and Africa. You don't have the modern world without Columbus, for better or for worse, and in many cases worse, especially if you're a native. At the same time, however, when it comes to the first Thanksgiving was a time of harvest and celebration and jollity, joviality between the early Americans, the Plymouth Pilgrims, and the natives of Massawite. I never say it right. Massawite. And so it isn't terrible to celebrate that or to remember that. But it's also important to acknowledge the natives in both of those stories. And that's why I don't think we should get rid of Columbus Day, in my own personal opinion, but I think we should have Columbus Day as part of Native American History Month. Instead of celebrating the Native Americans for one day, and a day that was originally given to a colonizer, celebrate them the entire month. Was hexed or saved from demonic spirits? Druids would go door to door asking for tribute, and if not, they would paint a hex. Yes, some of that is true, but it's a defanged way. It was, that was one of the celebrations of the ancient Druidic peoples. But so what? So what was the election of 1916 like, from what you know? How did Wilson con enough people to make believe he would keep them out of war? Wilson did intend, from everything I know, and I'm dressed up as Woodrow Wilson here for Halloween, celebrating Halloween by dressing up with all of you. So hopefully you've got a great costume lined up for today. But by popular demand here on YouTube, everybody voted for me to be Woodrow Wilson. Basically, Hars, Wilson had every intention, from what I understand, of keeping America out of the war. There was a division of opinion and support. There were plenty of people who felt that the Americans should help the Central Powers, Germany and Austria-Hungary. There's a strong German population in America. It was basically kind of rooting about sports teams, but Wilson was implicitly helping the Allies, the Entente, Britain, France, and Russia. But he really did not want to get America into a long-term war. So Samhain is pagan by its nature. If you believe that you need to protect yourself from the dead, which is spiritualism, is by definition a pagan. Yes, but it's also paganic in the sense that it is ancient, it is pre-Christian, it is almost prehistoric in how far back it goes. In Anglo-Saxon and Irish societies, Druidism is a huge indication of paganism. Paganism is usually polytheistic. The Greek-Roman mythologies, the mythologies of the Norse people, which was extremely influential on the Anglo-Saxons, by the way, since they're a Germanic people. And of course, that's why English is a German language partially. And of course, you also have the Egyptian mythology. Mythologies are a huge indication of paganism, of a more systematic paganism. Daily letter slaughter. How does history decide who gets to be remembered as a hero? And what does that say about the stories we're taught? Well, of course, history. That's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this so we get to learn, to learn as much as we possibly can, so that you know the full story, so you can make the judgment yourselves. Because history is always looking to the people by the byside. The bystanders of history are people in the present. We are watching. We are making up our minds and deciding: is this really the way we want to understand it? Do we want to reinterpret it? Was it right all along? Was it wrong all along? Where's the nuance? Where's the middle ground? The pentagram is not the Star of David. So why does the U.S. celebrate Thanksgiving? America. I already answered that. Okay, let me see here. The Holy Roman Empire was not holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. Voltaire's quote, that's absolutely true. Every year, life begins in the summer, reaches fullness in the summer, begins dying in the fall, dies in the winter, to be reborn again in spring. Yes, Wilson, that's one reason people would be very interested in the fall months being a time for this, for remembering the dead. Have you heard that the Welsh were in the 1100s and the Cherokee claimed they drove them out of their territory? Heard that. Nonsense. Even though they later slaughtered them. Okay, Brandon's just repeating himself. So they say Homo sapiens' origin is now considered to have started outside of Africa. Can you give more context? I mean, the earliest human civilization where we have structure and settlement is in the Middle East. It's not in Africa. That's the Mesopotamians. But there's also such strong evidence of human beings almost concurrently appearing in China and in India that you would have to have tens of thousands of years, probably, of migrations, settlement, and nomadacy. So it makes a lot of sense that it's not necessarily out of Africa where people emerged. It could have been, but it doesn't have to be. I just learned that some of the Muslim people are trying to rewrite the history of my people, the Norse. They're trying to say that we were Muslims. We were never Muslims, and it infuriates me. Well, Muslims have a lot of history that they can be proud of and should be proud of, and I've talked about it here on the channel, although a lot of Muslims do not like me, because I point out some of the incongruities between history and their religion, but I do that for every religion. The truth of the matter is that they don't need to rewrite history. They don't need to take everything that is good and say it's history. I've had many Muslims ask very leading questions, basically trying to claim that everything good in Spanish history was because of the Muslims, which is ludicrous. Spain created a huge, wealthy, powerful empire that was far greater than any Muslim empire at the time, except maybe the Ottomans, by getting rid of the Muslims and then going to the New World. Now is Nick Fuentes wrong about Africa? Well, he's wrong about everything. So American holidays are pagan. They cannot celebrate these days in Europe. That's not true. I think the Northerners should go claim Palestine for Thor. Just let the Christians visit. You guys have been passive. Well, that's the Crusades logic, Wholesome Grail. Columbus discovered Chinatown. He wanted to get to China, but never did. He thought he was in India until the day he died, even though Amerigo Vespucci, which is why the continents are named after Amerigo Vespucci and not Columbus, proved that he wasn't indeed in India. Is it true Christians used to slut-shame Hindu women for their clothing choices during British rule? Yes. They also stopped sati, the practice by which Hindu widows were thrown on a pyre and burned, along with all the possessions of a Hindu man who died. It's not surprised that that happened. Bring back Roman Lupercalia. Yeah, Lupercalia is cool. Kylo Ren dressed as Woodrow Wilson. Interesting. One of the most relaxing things to do is looking through a telescope. Copernicus was banished and mocked and very overlooked in history. Fascinating guy. Really got the raw into the sick for just being a dreamer, like a lot of people are. Why can't UK give up the Falkland Islands? Because they don't. Why can't Harry give up an argument? You've seen how Harry is. Now imagine an island like him. Have you watched Chief of War yet? No. Ronaldo or Messi? Probably Messi. Why did Rhodesians have to be destroyed? Decolonization. Yes. The pumpkins were filled with human sacrifice. That's not true. I don't know how much the pumpkin has to do with that. Gourds grow very commonly in the late fall, so I'm not surprised. So it's quite common. Are you Kylo Ren? No, I am not. I don't know why you're getting that idea that I'm Adam Driver. I grew out the beard this month because people wanted me to, but I am dressed up as Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president of the United States. The man who created the League of Nations and helped the United States win the Great War. Of course, also showed Birth of a Nation in the White House and did a bunch of other terrible things. But yeah, that's by popular demand. People voted for me to do that. I am not Kylo Ren. Islam is beautiful. There are many beautiful things about Islam. Have you heard the story that human beings were created and deposited on earth to evolve over thousands of years? Isn't that just the Bible? Is it true that the Italians didn't get malaria during the building of the Panama Canal to all the garlic they ate? I don't know if that's true, but the French died in large numbers when they engineered it. It's good to see you, Fidel. Halloween Druids sacrificed kids. They found a lot of child skeletons with cut marks in the knee. I'm not surprised about that. Is polygamy bad? Polygamy has been practiced all over the world. It's actually only relatively recent if you consider the medieval world to be not to be ancient. It's only recent. It's only relatively recently compared to all of human history, where he basically said, even in the West, that polygamy is wrong because it was the greatest holiday to ever existed. I don't know as much about it. I've heard of it. Isn't it the Roman Fall Festival where they celebrate Lupin? Don't they celebrate wolves? I'm trying to remember. It was an ancient Roman festival, very popular. Was it about Hesta, the goddess of the hearth? I don't know a huge amount, but thank you, Venge. The drip does go well. You do be looking like Adam, a little like Adam Driver. I don't think I do. Maybe it's the glasses that make me look like him. My hair's not as dark as him. My complexion's a little darker than his. What do you think of the Yamama steppe people replacing all of Europe, and who do you think the hunter-gatherers on Europe really were? Not sure. It's possible even Neanderthal man was some primitive form of Homo sapien. Who's your favorite philosopher? For the longest time, it's been Plato, because you can't have anything in history without Plato, at least in the Western world. Plato's so influential. But recently, I love reading Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer is the quiet kid in class. Just picture a classroom of philosophers. This would be so cool to do, so fun to do. And you've got Socrates, who's like asking why all the time, and you've got Nietzsche, who is scribbling angry things on his paper, and you've got Camus, who's given up, and you've got Dostoevsky, who's drawing beautiful little butterflies on the corners of his paper, and you've got Plato, who's answering all the questions, and Aristotle, who's answering all the questions with an opposite answer, because, the famous painting, the forms are here, no, the forms are up here. You picture all the great philosophers. You picture Aquinas, and he's wearing a cross. All these great philosophers who are quite fascinating. You picture Kant, and he's trying to take everyone's answer and put it into one simple form. And you picture Nietzsche just trying to, lift weights in class and be the strong one. And all these incredible philosophers. But Schopenhauer is the quiet kid in the corner, not the one you should be concerned about, but the quiet kid who's writing, and you just feel like as if you were a teacher, you would feel, oh my gosh, he's failing. He's not paying any attention. He never participates. And then you read, and everything he writes is beautiful. And that's how I feel when I read Schopenhauer. I think everything he writes is beautiful, except about women. He's too misogynistic for me. But he understands the need for solowness, the need for individuality in the human soul. So I do really love Schopenhauer. But yeah, I mean, his philosophy is summed up in one of the best memes I've ever seen. There are two types of people in this world. Avoid both of them. So yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. I don't talk about philosophy a lot, but I do love it. Aurelius is really good. Aurelius would be the one cleaning up all of the desks because it is the right thing to do. And Aurelius would be the one who would not get mad if he failed a test. And Aurelius would be the one who would react very, very placidly if he got an A. And Kierkegaard would be sad and not be able to tell you the reason he was sad every day in class. Yeah. Epictetus is very, very good. Another good Stoic philosopher. I really appreciate how smart and thoughtful you are. It's clear you've done your research. I agree with a lot of what you said, like that Columbus shouldn't be celebrated as the discoverer of... Yeah, Columbus is not a discoverer. Just Columbus is an introduction to something greater and quite interesting. And without it, we wouldn't have what we have now, at least not in this capacity. Who produced better apologists? What are you referring to? Are you talking about religion or philosophy? The Germans are the philosophy kings in many ways. But then again, you've got Sartre, you've got Kant, not Kant, Kant's German. You've got Voltaire, Rousseau. The French have had many great philosophers. Government structure can explain why the Dominican Republic has fared better than Haiti. There's a lot of different reasons for that. But Haiti has been topsy-turvy ever since Toussaint Louverture's revolution. So Lupercal was the festival where you had lots of naked priests who would run around the Capitol Hill of Rome, Capitoline. Yes, and I've got videos on the Roman Empire, and include long form and short form, and I talk about the 7 hills. Capitoline is the main one, as you might imagine. Kierkegaard being sad and unable to tell you why he made what. Yep. Why did France allow Germany bombers to fly over to Spain during the Spanish Civil War? They didn't want a larger war with Germany because Hitler had rebuilt it. What do you think of Hegel? Hegel's interesting because I don't know a lot about him, but he creates the dialectic. He believes democracy is an inevitable reality, that humans will only get better and be more free and more progressive. Hegel is, in many ways, in my mind, responsible for a lot of modern thinking in philosophy. Picturing Hegel as a student in a classroom. Hegel would be the one who does the work because there's a reward out there for him. And Marx would be the one who's always thinking that everything in class is unfair. And Diogenes is the kid who never showered and lobbing spitballs. Yeah, Diogenes is just joking around with everybody and messing around. And so you would have women running to the street, priests would tap them with their fake whips to get them out the way. It was a whole thing. It was brilliant. And the one year Mark Antony did it was while he was consul. Could you imagine that head of state running around a hill naked? No, but I don't want to. Yeah, Hegel was very smart, but didn't have the whole picture. Hegel was incredibly smart. Yeah, a lot of people don't like German philosophy, but when you look at just the sheer number of philosophers from Heidegger to Kant to Marx, Germany has it in droves. What's your opinion on Lao Tzu? Of course, we can't talk about philosophy without talking about the Chinese philosophers. Of course, Lao Tzu's, basically, the Chinese word for teacher is Lao Tzu because of how impactful he is. I do love Taoism. I think it's the Chinese equivalent of Stoicism. I think a lot of Chinese philosophy is very Stoic, actually. So anyways, love talking about philosophy, but questions about history, social studies. Does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss? We've gone about 40 minutes. Usually I go the full hour, but I'm starting to get a little tired here. My throat's getting a little dry. So, modern German civilization is underrated about the mustache guy. Oh, geez. True. Germany is a fascinating country. Muslims cannot behave in Christian countries. They can't coexist, except for the fact that they did for many years after they conquered a Christian country named Spain. So that's not fully true. It's where these people are coming from. It's the cultural drift. It's racism. It's segregation. It's all sorts of other reasons. You've got to if you want to be a good historian, if you want to be a good social scientist, you have to consider all of the potential factors and then look at what's the realistic factors. My thought as well, how Lao Tzu and Epictetus' worldview complement each other amazingly. They very much do, bro. So, yeah. Anyways, other questions about history or social studies. What do you think about Nick Knowles, the greatest British philosopher ever? I think you spelled John Locke wrong. I think Locke is the greatest British philosopher. If not, then Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes, John Stuart Mill. The British have had a few. I mean, nothing like the French. The French are nothing like the Germans. So, what is your favorite name of Allah? You mean of God? I don't have a particular favorite name. I don't talk about religion in my own personal beliefs. I don't share my political views. If you're new to this channel, I try to be as objective as possible. And if I share a historical perspective, it's because I want people to learn and get better at history, such as the best of all deceivers. Oh, that's what he's referring to? I don't really care. I don't know all of the Muslim names for Allah. I would be speaking out of my rear end to do that. So, other questions? If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. We'll be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll be answering more questions about history, social studies. I'll be in my usual formal attire, but I won't be dressed up to the gills like this. What's the relationship between India and Southeast Asia all the way to Australia? Trade is a huge part of the connection between them. For many of the Europeans, before they got to Japan and China and the Far East, they would stop in India, and they built settlements for trade. Macau, Malay, Goa is obviously some of them, and obviously Southeast Asia, Siam, Malaysia, Thailand. These are the Indonesia, the Dutch colonizers are extremely important to that. Columbus was of Spanish Jewish origin, likely from Valencia, contradicting the traditional theory that he was from Genoa. Italy researchers proposed that he hid his Jewish identity over persecution. That's true. He was a very devout Christian, but he was also from Genoa. He might have been born in Valencia, but he learned all of his seafaring from Genoa. He went to Iceland. He went all around Europe. He had traded a lot. He knew there was something out there, and he thought it was India. He just thought it wasn't that he thought the world was flat. That's not true at all. He felt that the world was a lot lot smaller than it actually is. So, anyways, do you think there will ever be a battle like Stalingrad again? Oh, 1,000-day siege of Stalingrad in the middle of Operation Barbarossa in the last, what I call World War III. I don't know. No, I think that tactical nuclear weapons prevent that from happening. I think nuclear weapons have changed the way we fight wars. Some of the sieges between the Russians and Ukrainians have been similar, but not that long. How do you pronounce Yahweh? YHWH? That's the supposed name of God from Christian theology. It's Yahweh. Do you think there will ever, let me see here. Hats off to you for your knowledge and willing to take heterodox stances if that's what primary sources point to. It's what they point to. It's what good historians have pointed to. Every historian wants to be heterodox. Every historian wants to get a lot of attention and come up with something new. It's nothing. I don't like it when people get mad at me for doing it because if you read any history book, they're going to say, well, generally people thought this, but it's actually this. And they think they're so brooding and deep when they do it. I do it, and I'm honest about it. Yeah, I'm introducing a new perspective. So what? If you don't like it, you don't have to agree with me. Please prove me wrong, and I will gladly change my perspective back. I've changed my perspective on this channel about certain topics from time to time. I used to promote he called them Indians because he thought he was an India narrative. Do you think the UK had the greatest empire to ever exist? By territorial and population centered, yes. What do Europeans have to do with my question? Because if I go over to your house and you are not treating me well, then of course I can't coexist with you. Why do you think the Catholic Inquisitions were in use while it's an inversion of the teachings in Yeshua HaMashiach? Okay, so I don't know who that is. I think you're referring to Jesus. But basically, The whole point. This is based off of a philosophy of sacralism, which was very popular in the medieval and early modern world, where basically many people believed in Catholic Christianity and other forms of Christianity too, that losing your soul and endangering the souls of other people was worse than being killed or tortured. And that in order to get you to confess and repent, your soul is eternal, your body is temporal in their minds. So because of that, you could be, if you confess and go to heaven, you will be in heaven forever if you repent. But if you refuse to, and so torment right now means nothing if you recant properly. They also believe that if you were endangering other people with your beliefs, then killing you would potentially save the souls, the eternities of several other people. So you don't corrupt 5 other people, you get killed. That was the attitude back then. Why do history teachers always pick their nose? I don't. I don't think Muslims are treated that badly in Europe, and I don't think it helps that the U.S. president is orange nutjob who hates Muslims. See, you throw a barn burner out of nowhere that has nothing to do with it and has no context whatsoever. The Europeans themselves are having problems with this. Just using that to score political points because you read The Guardian this morning, Harry, doesn't make you smart. In fact, I'm getting sick and tired of what The Guardian thinks. I'm getting sick and tired of what every major media outlet thinks. This is why I do the news on this channel, because I'm sick and tired of all of the ridiculous subjective narratives that people think they know best because they're from Europe and they can judge American politics, and then they use something that's totally unrelated to what's actually happening in their country. So nonsense. Doctrine of discovery. I'm talking about the expansion of the coals and how Australians seem to show over 10% of their DNA from Indians, but seem to predate the colas. Oh yes. I don't know. I don't know enough about that. I can't speak to that. I don't know enough about DNA records to say that. I don't read The Guardian. I read the Mirror. Well, that's even worse than The Guardian. At least The Guardian used to be a respectable publication. And thank you, Wholesome Grail. Thank you for the Fry reference. Shut up and take my money. If you had a time machine, what time period would you like to travel to? I'd love to work with the Teutonic Knights. I'd love to talk to Woodrow Wilson and fix his perspectives about some things. But I would go to the late 19th century in France and Europe. The Guardian is, you need to read the Daily Mirror. Brilliant newspaper. No, I've read the Daily Mirror. It's nonsense. And by the way, no offense to the Brits, I do think that most media publications are nonsense. I think the New York Times is nonsense. I think the Wall Street Journal is nonsense. I think the New York Post is mainly nonsense. If I get a story that's actually verifiably true, that's fine. But when I can go onto social media and get a story that in an hour the New York Times will run a story on, I don't need the New York Times anymore. So thank you, Arak. I appreciate that. Wa alak ya salam. Salam to you too, Henry. It's always great to have you here. Blame the military for open borders, then? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I'm not a fan of the. I don't know how anyone who's a historian could ever be a fan of the media, and anyone who's read history could not understand greatly the way the media has deceived and manipulated people. Joseph Goebbels wasn't saying I'm here to lie and manipulate you. Pravda wasn't saying we are not Pravda. Winston Smith called the BBC, or sorry, Winston Smith worked at the Ministry of Truth, and literally, and George Orwell compared the Ministry of Truth to the BBC, which he had worked for. Orwell knew exactly how bad it was. That's why when I do the news, I try to avoid adjectives and adverbs. Because adjectives and adverbs tell you exactly everything you need to know, because it's me manipulating you. Because I'm reporting information to you, and because you think that I'm a reliable source, you will be more likely to believe what I say. So if I add in my opining thoughts through the lens of adverbs and adjectives, you can be manipulated into believing something that's totally not true. I'm good looking, I'm smart, and I speak clearly. That could manipulate you too. And I'm not talking about me. This is what the American media does. David Muir does it on ABC, for instance, all the time. Brett Baer on Fox. So there you go. And I hit both sides on this. The right doesn't have political power in the media the way the left has. But the right-wing organizations do it just as blatantly. Fox News, for instance, in the United States, and probably Harry's least favorite publication, the Daily Mail, does it a lot in Great Britain. I like the Mirror. It only reads newspaper in the UK not owned by Rupert Murdoch. Well, yes, you're a leftist and you hate everything Rupert Murdoch does, so there you go. And I don't think he owns the Guardian or the Telegraph or the Independent. He owns the Daily Mail, I know that. Are you a leftist? People can guess whatever they want about my political perspectives and backgrounds. Whatever my politics are should have nothing to do with the way that the news and information is reported. So yeah, don't believe whatever I say. Believe whatever is true. And if I happen to say true things, then believe them. MAGA equals poorly educated. There are many poorly educated people on MAGA. And you know what's the worst possible thing? This is why, by the way, if you want a historian's perspective as a social scientist on a political topic, and some of you have been here before, have heard me say this, do you want to know why Donald Trump is president and won twice, even after the January 6th Capitol riot? It's because of people who say his people are stupid. They have all the more fervor to go out to the polls and vote and get him back into power, to take it out on people who think they are stupid. That condescending attitude against the right has backfired. It backfired with Brexit. It backfired with Trump both times. It's backfiring in France. It's backfiring in Germany. It's backfired in Israel, and it backfired in the Netherlands. It's going to backfire again in the UK. I mean, all I have to say is Prime Minister Nigel Farage. Why you have his picture? It's a nice historical picture, a nice historical background, catches the eye. I'm surrounded by my Teutonic Knights. I know that's a juxtaposition. I'm supposed to be Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, surrounded by the Teutoni, but they are not the same. These are the same people who believed in Q. Fair point, though. That's true. Why? Because he's orange. You can't go around calling every media outlet Lugan Press. I just did. How do you not fall in the trap of How do you not fall into the pseudo-intellectual trap? I believe iron sharpens iron. I believe I learn best from other people who know more than I do, and I'm more than willing to be corrected, and I'm more than willing to be wrong about something. And if a news outlet reports something well, I'll say that, or I'll use what they report. I'm not opposed to using the New York Times. I have the New York Times open on one tab, and I have the Epoch, which is the right-wing version of the New York Times, open on the next one. And that's not the point. Let me see here. Sorry, the right doesn't have power. Media proved wrong. I'm going to say two words: Rupert Murdoch. I'm not saying they don't have any power. I'm saying that the media is dominated by the left. Are you center right? You can keep guessing. People have guessed. Ask Harry and Harse. They have no idea what I am. I'm Harry, for instance. Harse, one of my moderators, is a right wing, whatever. Harry is a socialist, but he's also a nationalist. He's a national socialist, because that's not a bad thing at all. That's never led to any problems. It wants to withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. It wants to abolish the 1998. I don't care if it's absolutely insane. It's going to be in power, so you're going to have to deal with it. Yes, well, you're an incel, so of course you're for eugenics. You look Robert Dashing today. Well, thank you, Frog. I'm dressed up as Woodrow Wilson because that's what they voted for, and I decided to surround myself with Teutonic Knights because that's what I can do because I'm in charge here. Yes. People will be begging for labor. Every time they beg for labor, labor stabs them in the back. Cameron, Blair, and of course now Starmer. It hasn't worked. On the concept, idea of faith of God, and still do. My God is the correct God, so it's fair to say that billions of humans are stupid and wrong. Billions of people are stupid and wrong, and I'm one of them. I can be wrong about many things, and I'm stupid. If I made a channel about mechanics, I'd be the stupidest person ever because I wouldn't know anything. It's not about religion. It's the way religion is used. Religion can be used to do a lot of good, and religion can be used to do a lot of harm. Religion is just the vehicle for how people use and wield power and wield ideas and deal with them. Let me see here. Did you know Portugal was a 100-born Templar nation, 1311? Yes. Blue Jays or Dodgers? We'll see. The Blue Jays look like they've got it going on, though. Thank you for giving the membership to King Dopey. I really appreciate that, Tanya. And Tony, and you guys can become members. I don't have a lot of bonuses for you guys right now. I don't have a lot of early content. I'm just in such a busy season of my life right now. It's not been easy to do friendly neighborhood history stuff, but today has been awesome. I really appreciate everyone coming out. But, super chats, all of that stuff, all the money you give to the channel goes back into the channel, and watching the videos gives ad revenue. So we are monetized here. Let me see. Cameron was a Tory. Not Cameron. Then Brown. Gordon Brown. Brown. And then you've got, and the Tories don't really count. They're discount labor at this point. And that's why that's why the Reform Party is the party of the right. I have talked about this for a long time, and it is actually historically relevant. When the right doesn't do what the right wants them to do, the right-wing, center-right parties in Europe and the United States, the alternative is strong. The Republicans were like this for a long time in the United States. Now there's MAGA. The Conservatives were like this in Britain. Now there's Reform. The only place I haven't seen this happen yet is Canada, where the Conservative Party still continues to be horrifyingly incompetent, at least from a right-wing. At least from what their constituents want. So, So yes, if the right, the center in France has been terrible for a long time, you get the National Front. The Christian Democrats in Germany have not done anything for their right-wing constituents, so you get the AfD. You're going to get far-right parties. Vox in Spain is an example of this. Yeah. And by the way, right and left come from the French. Here's another historical lesson: come from the French Revolution. The Grions, who were more open to the king, more open to religion, sat on the right side of the National Assembly. The Jacobins, led by Robespierre and others, sat on the left wing of the left side of the hall. Yes, and National Socialist is what the Nazis were. So Harry is a National Socialist. I'm not saying he's a Nazi, but it's weird. He says he's a strong nationalist, but he's also a strong socialist. So, are you really Woodrow Wilson? No, I am not Woodrow Wilson, but I am dressed as him. Can you talk about Roanoke? Interesting, 1586, first English colony. You've got, of course, what's his face? Sir Walter Raleigh sets it up with a man named George White. They leave, they come back. All the colonists are dead after a year. Powhatan, the father of Pocahontas, said that he killed them, and I believe that's probably what actually happened. But the only thing they left behind was a word drawn on a tree, Croatan, Croaton. So we don't know exactly what's happened. What's your thoughts on Wilders in Poland? I'm not going to give my personal perspectives about any of these political leaders, but I'm just saying why they're in power from a historical perspective. So you don't like Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. I don't think, it's not that I don't like them. It's that they're inept. It's that the Labour Party is inept. It's that the Conservative Party is inept. The British don't do well. The British haven't been crazy about the Labour Party in a long time. And they're not crazy about Starmer now either. Did Alexander the Great abandon his conquest due to fatigue or sustain a major defeat? He sustained a defeat. His soldiers gave up. It was a mutiny. Watch my video on Alexander. We Germany are cooked. The government gave... yes, see, there's a lot of people in Germany who are mad. I met a Spanish guy in London in 1980s. He told me his dad was in the Spanish Franco Blue Division. He was captured by the Red Army Soviets so in the East and held captive. Oh, kneecappers. That's fascinating. He must have had incredible stories. The nearby Indian tribe names suggest they were abducted and eaten. Could have been. It wasn't impossible for cannibalism or human sacrifice in Native America. There is so much insanity on these YouTube's lives. Amazing to finally find a diamond in the rough. Well, Wholesome Grill, we're so glad that we found you, and thank you for joining us. They did not lie to you. There's some truth in it. But yeah, they're inept. I'm sorry, the 19... It's not about landslide elections. By that standard, Boris Johnson was not inept. By that standard, the Reform Party is not about to be inept. Yeah, it's Harry. Your standards for how you understand how politics works are disingenuous. Oh geez, someone named Muhammad greeting Crusaders. This is getting bad. Adding to Alexander the Great. Do you think that this tomb really exists? It could. Yeah. What about Australia? They've been going through a lot of turmoil. Yes, they have. I don't know as much about it. I don't know if it has anything to do with political divide. I am just simply saying that people, and Harry doesn't understand what I'm saying, but people, even in Europe, people on the right are upset at the mainstream right-wing parties, but they're also upset at almost as much as they are at the left. It's getting interesting, I should say. Do you know where the ideas of ties came into play? I don't know. Neckties, it's a devolution of neckwear, or a continuation of neckwear that went back to collars and like Shakespeare wore. Got nothing against the name. I'm glad you're here. It's great to have people with different names and backgrounds. Have you watched the documentary Israelism yet? No, I have not. It was another labor landslide. Yes, and in 2028 it will be a major labor defeat. What is your point? Your point seems kind of superfluous. What could Africa do to get rid of old colonizer families still owning us resources like the Rothschilds owning a lot of land? I don't know. That's a huge problem for Africa. Continual kleptocracies that allow them to do that is the issue. The lack of real experiment with democracy. It's not that it's Harry, you don't understand how the word inept actually means. It's not that they're inept at getting elected, it's that they're inept at running the country, which is why they usually lose power after a few years, and why the conservatives had controlled power for a long time. And it has nothing to do with my own political perspectives. I'm judging it from what I see in public opinion about this. People are furious at the Labour government. They're furious at what's happening in the UK. Republicans are starving Americans by holding snap hostage. The midterms are going to be a landslide. That's probably true. All right. Yes, well, he's misspelling labor because he's a Brit. Gordon Brown overall the longest period of sustained economic growth. Okay. How did that turn out for him? Harry, you're not getting my point. Could you expand on the topic of Africa? The issue is the problem with Africa. It's not just colonialization or post-colonialism. It's that's nice, Harry. And now Poland's about to pass you guys up. So, enough. Um, so, the point about Africa is you've got a lot of kleptocratic governments where you have powerful people, dictators, and their cronies, basically, who absorb a huge amount of the wealth and resources that are actually meant to be assisting the people. So a huge amount of the aid given to Africa doesn't actually go to Africa. We have in this government been the fastest growing economy in the G7 for several months. And yet Poland's still going to pass you. I'd love to hear your take. Um, Gordon Brown, same guy who sold gold reserves at rock bottom prices, that guy. Harry doesn't care like that part. Why does the cult of Mithra have a bull having a have a really bad time? What's the history about them? The basic idea is that Mithra, Attis, and Horus are supposed to be pre-Christ like Christ figures who were born of virgins, born on December 25th, and have some similar stories. Died and came back to life. Who still control at least 13 countries holding them hostage. The Bull Moose Party was Teddy Roosevelt's party. He ran as he called it the Bull Moose because of his hunting repertoire, but it was really a progressive party. And Woodrow Wilson, defeated them in 1912. And yes, 6-7. There you go. I'll take Mikhail Gorbachev liked the United States of America a lot. He came to really admire the United States. You mean when we had to sell gold pension funds to fund bank bail that saved millions of people's life savings? Yes, Harry, that's therein lies the problem. Therein lies the disconnect. There you go. You got the 6-7 out of me, all of that great stuff. And we went over an hour. So what was Checkpoint Charlie? Wasn't that a border stop in Vietnam? Or am I way off there? Hello, AI. Good to see you. We needed the USSR to create balance. The United States needs a bogeyman. That's definitely true. So it's not a problem. That's a fact. I'm not saying I'm not saying you have a problem. I'm saying your problem is that your continual glazing of labor doesn't actually hold true when you consider that my whole point is that as much as labor has not been popular in the way they've run the government, you flip the argument. I'm talking about the ineptitude of them running. I'm talking about their ineptitude in holding on to power. But you want to point out that they won these massive landslides. Then I point out that it's actually about the ineptitude of them running the government. And you say, well, they did all these great things. Yeah, they did. I'm not saying they didn't, but you're flipping the script. My point is that they've gotten to a position where they are extremely unpopular and unlikable. And just to point out, the Tory government from 2010-2015 literally implemented Gordon Brown's plan. I don't care. I really don't care. Labor will be kaput for generations, thankfully. Labor is in big trouble right now. And Harry doesn't believe that because Harry doesn't listen, but that doesn't matter. And my moderators are great. They do a great job, but some of them get bad tunnel vision. How do you think rage bait will affect the future? Well, my moderators like to rage bait me, so you should ask them. What can you tell us about the five good emperors? It starts with a man named Nerva, who really wasn't that good, but the best thing he did was select maybe the best Roman emperor, Trajan. And basically what made these five emperors great was Rome was at its highest point of prosperity, wealth, and power. They got their largest territorial expansion under Trajan. But basically, they picked their emperors. So Nerva picks Trajan picks Hadrian picks Antoninus Pius picks Lucius Verus, and another man named Marcus Aurelius. Aurelius, when he dies, is succeeded by his son Commodus, who is literally the name for the commode. He's so bad. Speaking of taking monster dumps, Ethan. I also think I'm handsome. Yes, Frog Lover is indeed handsome. Capitalism fails wherever it's tried. Okay, then. Why did Paul change the name of Christ to Jesus, Isios? Well, Caesar and so many other historical names are not changed. His name is Yeshua. So, Paul doesn't do that. Paul writes in Greek. In Greek, it's Iosus, or it's Christos, which is the title for the Messiah. That's the terminology he uses, Iosis. And of course, that becomes Iusu in Latin, and then Jesu, and then Jesus. A coalition of communists and Muslims was always doomed. Yes, look at the Iranian Revolution. And how that happened. Look at Afghanistan in the 1980s. What do you think of the steam engine? Watch my video on the Industrial Revolution to see more. It's obviously huge. Probably the best and most important invention in human history. High corporate taxes can fix our problems. A lot of people think that. Yes, they're unpopular, but to be fair, it's a global trend at the moment. The incumbent governments are pretty much all unpopular. No, the left-wing governments tend to be extremely unpopular. It's a problem for the left, and the dissatisfaction with right-wing parties has led to a shift to the hard right in many European countries. And that's not a problem, by the way, Harry. That's a fact. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's happening. So next Halloween, dress up as Donald Trump. Well, that will keep Harry away. And thank you, Ross Ulbricht. Oh yes, Ross Ulbricht. Thank you for referencing him. Unpopular would be a compliment, and soon to be part of history. Isn't Starmer in the Guinness Book of Records for the most hated politician since records began? No, the Peruvian president is. No, all governments tend to be pretty unpopular. I mean, Macron is very unpopular. Merkel was unpopular by the end of her government. Yeah. You're not getting my point, Harry. Yes. Again. So, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't like talking about politics. I like talking about history, but Harry doesn't care what I like to talk about. It was going to get a lot more popular when they break the manifesto to put taxes up because they were idiots and decided to promise that they weren't going to put taxes up. Yes, and that happened that's George Bush, how bad that can get. I think I know more. Well, go ahead. There's just a joke. Share what you have to know. The left almost definitionally requires a declining civilization to seize power. That's essentially what leftism is. To rip this up in something else. Isn't that? It's not just the left that does that. Woodrow Wilson's 1916 ran on, he's kept us out of war, which is just such a lie because he was behind the scenes getting the U.S. into World War. No, that's not true. I actually believe Woodrow Wilson did not want us in the war. He wanted what Woodrow Wilson, since that's what I'm dressed up as, wanted, so I can speak for Woodrow Wilson himself. What Woodrow Wilson wanted was good relations with Britain, and in order to do that and loaning money and making America prospering off of the war, and aiding them in somewhat, but it didn't. I'm not a Woodrow Wilson fanboy, and I'm not disingenuous. But it's disingenuous to make that argument when clearly Wilson actually didn't do anything to try to get us in the war, and you already know that. I'm asking if you want to debate history or religion. I don't want to debate religion because this isn't a religious channel. I don't share my religious perspectives. I don't share my political perspectives. I've shared my analysis as a social scientist. Harry does not understand the difference between someone making a point, an argument, and you're only 15? Oh gosh, I should have considered that in all of our arguments. That makes so much more sense. You do know a lot, I will say that. But point being, I'm not going to despise your youth, but my point is that basically there's a difference between making a point and arguing with an implication of a point that I made. I'm not trying to make an argument. I want to make sure Taft started the income tax. Taft was president when it was first started. Wilson is the one that made it permanent, but it became a constitutional amendment eventually. So, anyways, I'm going to sign off. I went almost 10 more minutes. I was only expecting to go a half hour today, but I had enough energy and vigor, thanks to all of you guys and your great questions, to go for almost 70 minutes, which is on the Atlas thing heading our way. I don't think it's going to develop into anything, and I don't think it's alien technology. Please like and subscribe on your way out, and it's so great to see you, Mohammed. Please like and subscribe, and you can join us, Mohammed, tomorrow for our Q&A tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be discussing the history of Halloween, and you guys can watch my video on it, my long-form video coming out today in just about 25 minutes. So take care. Have a great evening, a very happy Halloween. Share some of the history knowledge you learned from me at the next party you're at, and you'll get lots of candy for this Sahuan celebration. So, excuse me. Take care. Have a great night, and always a pleasure to have you all here. Yes, we hate you too. And have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and in the channel from now on. And remember, as always, like and subscribe on your way out. And